Happy Tuesday, everybody, and welcome to the most sitting at home all day, every day, doing nothing but staying home, maybe going for a walk occasionally with my dog, and once in a while trying to go to the store to get some groceries, but wearing a mask and staying 6 feet from everybody else. Podcast on all of the internet, Made Men, where today I just finished watching Season 7, Episode 12 of Mad Men, Lost Horizon. But before we get into this spectacular episode, let's take a moment to hear from today's sponsor. Oh, what a wonderful sponsor that was. Now, let's jump right in to Lost Horizon. The episode opens up with, what else? Dawn going into an elevator. There's been a lot of elevator stuff going on the last couple seasons of Mad Men. But we haven't had elevator sex, have we? I mean, we've had it pretty much everywhere else, but not an elevator. And after this, there's only 2 episodes left. So I'm not sure if I'm ever going to get love in an elevator. Living it up? I'm not even going to sing it. Okay. So he goes into the elevator, he sees this woman that he's like, oh, hi, and he kind of tries to remember her name, and I'm like, what is happening? What is going on? It's been a week, and I've already forgotten everything about the last episode. Wait a second, that's right. They're going to McCann Erickson. Sterling Cooper, Draper, Price, Sterling Cooper and Associates, Sterling Cooper and Partners, whatever it is, Sterling Cooper is no more. Don goes up to his office. There he sees Meredith. And she's like waiting in the hall for him. And he's like, you don't have to do this. And he says, she's like, it's a big place. I don't want you to get lost. He goes, I wasn't lost at that time. I was late because I was fibbing. And she just, she's like, well, come on. You shouldn't be that way. Let's go into the office. And while she's talking to him about the day's work, she's also talking to him about his apartment. And I guess he has a new apartment. And she's trying to figure out the furniture for him. She seems to be taking care of everything for him and even brought out his coffee, even though it kind of spilt. He's like, you can just leave this in here for me. And there he is kind of in his new office. You can still see boxes hanging out. He's not ready to, he's not completely unpacked yet. It's pretty new. Just looking out the window, kind of getting a lay of the land. We cut over to the empty shell of Sterling Cooper, and we see Harry for really the only moment in this episode. They're taking the computer out, and we see Roger, and Roger's there, and they have a little kind of conversation. Roger's like, "Oh, you're gonna room with the computer?" He's like, "No, that thing has served its purpose. Now he has all these people to do all this data and all this research." He's kind of moving up, and he was like, "Oh, maybe we'll work together sometime." Roger's like, what did he say? Something about you might need a new hat. Your head's getting big. You can see that Harry is kind of in a good position with the new company. He's happy to be moving on and leaving. And him and Roger they never really liked each other. You could tell that Roger never really respected Harry. And that's good because Harry's kind of, he's garbage. As we say in Boston, he's garbage. Okay, I don't live in Boston, but close enough. Garbage. And then we see Roger's secretary, who is giving her final day. He's like, "What? You need to come over there." She's like, "No, it's just, I have a new position now, and advertising isn't always the most welcoming place because she's a black woman." And he's like, "Oh." You could see he didn't really he never discriminated against her. I mean, yes, there was, a couple of years ago, he did throw a party and sing in blackface, but look, he didn't. I mean, it was just good old innocent racism, right? I mean, that was years ago. And he seemed to like her. They shook hands. She goes, she goes, thank you. You were very amusing. And she left. And that's the last time we're going to see her. And Roger, for the most part, stays in Sterling Cooper for most of the episode. I'm not going to stay there. I'm I'm scrubbing through the episode, so we're going to just go in order. I don't know why my New England accent's coming out big time. This is an interesting episode for Joan, a big episode for Joan. Is it a last episode for Joan? That's what I'm not sure about. But I will say it was not a good episode for Joan. It was a downright bad episode for Joan, and I feel bad because she was 100% right in how she felt and how she dealt with it. In today's world, 1,000% right. And in that world, actually 1,000% right too. But it just, we'll get there eventually. But really, let's kind of start with Joan in her office. She's in her new office in the new place. And she has two women coming in kind of, I guess, bringing her gifts right away. They're like, they bring her plant. Nice to meet you. Really, they just want to get on accounts with her, and they thought she was their best way of getting on accounts like Avon and the pantyhose account. They talk a little bit, and they were like, she's like, well, Peggy is actually in charge of those accounts, Peggy Olsen. Like, oh, okay. But, we thought we'd try with you first, and we have a women's night if you'd like to go out. It's not all women's lib talk. We just like to hang out. You want to go out for drinks? And she's like, yes, when I get settled. That was my dog crying, and I'm going to go take her out now. And through the magic of digital editing, I'm back like nothing ever happened. Except my dog looking for rabbits in the backyard. We cut over to Peggy Olsen, who's carrying a box of things, and is she at McCann Erickson? No. She's still at Sterling Cooper. She's carrying her stuff. She's at Sterling Cooper, and that one dude who I already forgot his name, he's been there for a while, but again, I don't know. I'll call him Dan. We'll go with that. He's sitting in her office, and she shows up in her old office. This is back at Sterling Cooper. She's at Sterling Cooper with her box of stuff, and he's like, what are you doing here? She's like, my office isn't ready yet. So she still wants to keep working. Her office isn't ready. She's working there. They're like literally tearing down Sterling Cooper around her. And she wants to work. And he's like, yeah. She's like, what are you doing here? He's like, well, I'm not going to McCann. They're paying me at the end of the week, so I thought I'd come here and make long distance phone calls. And you think he's joking. And she's like, give him some work. He's like, make a phone call. He's like, me? She's like, I'm not going to do it. So while he's still working there, she's going to put him to work. We cut back over to McCann, and they bring, it's the main guy. I want to say Jim, but I don't know. And the other guy, he's got like a weird name, like Fifth or Piff or Kiff. He's a dick. We'll say that, right? We learn that pretty quickly in this episode. He a dick. But they bring Don Draper into the office, and they just they're like, there he is. He's like, I've always wanted you, Don. It's like he's finally got the toy that he wanted. I've been searching for you for 10 years. You're the great white whale. He didn't say any of these things, but he's like, finally I have you. And he's like, have you introduced yourself to anyone? Have you said who you are? Have you said it? And he's like, hi, I'm Don Draper, McCann Erickson. Yes. The guy was like a little too excited about the whole thing, but he's talking about, we're going to have this and we're going to have that, and they're coming up with diet beer. Diet beer? What is it, for women? And we're going to be meeting with, I think they were talking about a bunch of other things and getting Don in, and they were just really kissing his ass. I was going to say something much more crude. They were just really kind of rubbing up to him and kissing his ass and making him feel good about him being there and about them having him there. It's like they love having him there. Will they continue to love having him there? I'm not sure. It's almost like Sterling Cooper people are there to blow themselves up from the inside. Starting with Peggy. Peggy is in a meeting on the phone with, I want to say Avon, and she's got one of the McCann people in the office with her. And this guy didn't read the brief, was real kind of a jerk, talked about taking the client golfing. The guy's in a wheelchair. You can see the look on Peggy's face. She's trying to iron things out. And this guy is just like, he's being a dick to her. And he's like, I thought you were going to be more fun. and he really kind of blew it with her, and really made it seem like this is her. These are her clients she brought over. She wants the client to be happy. It's like nothing's going to change. Everything's going to be the same. Blah, 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 blah. And yet this guy's a complete turd. And I'm pretty sure he was the turd who was in with them when they had a meeting. It was Peggy and Joan and a couple of turds who were like making fun of Joan's boobs the whole time. I think they were making boob jokes. And I'm pretty sure it was this guy. This guy has like a very memorable face. He's one of those guys that you've seen in things. I don't know who he is, but for the most part, he plays kind of a doofus, buffoon, prick kind of guy. And he's playing them all in this part. We cut over to Peggy's office. And not Peggy's office, Peggy's apartment. She's kind of hanging out watching color TV. She's got a color TV. She's got her own remote control, which I always thought like, is this like a rich thing? Did they have remote controls in the 60s? And I'm guessing, are we in the 70s yet? I have no idea. Much like in real life, the concept of time is no more. But like a color TV with a remote control, I'm talking, if this is 1970, I'm talking 10 years later in the 80s. I don't think we didn't have a remote control yet on one of our televisions. We had like this, I feel like I brought this up before, this long wire that came from behind. We did a cable, so it came from behind the cable box all the way to this like long box that had all these numbers on it and a slider, and you would slide up and down, go to channel 4, 5, 6, 7. You'd have to slide all the way up, and it went from 2 to 32, I think. That was it. Those are the channels you got. And while there's no cable TV, she does have a remote control. And I'm yawning, and I'm digressing, and I'm ranting, and this has nothing to do with TV. She gets a knock on the door, and it's someone from the office. And they're like, oh, I went to the office, and they said for you to come here. And she's like, they brought you a plant. She's like, you didn't have to bring it all this way. He goes, well, they brought it to all the girls. Oh, that's really nice. All the secretaries. What? So my first thought was, oh my God, are they thinking they're hiring her as a secretary? And it makes me wonder what they think of women over at McCann Erickson. Those women came right in right away to talk to Joan. I wonder if they were there to warn her or like, I don't know, be some sort of like bad omen. But the woman's like, don't worry, I'll take care of it. Should I have, she's like, have my work sent here. She's like, to your house, your apartment? No, have it sent to Sterling Cooper. So it's like, Peggy's just kind of in a weird spot where her office isn't ready, but she wants to work, but she's kind of in between home and Sterling Cooper. And it's just, she's almost like just trying to pass the time until everything's ready for her. The next morning we get a nice moment with Joan and Dawn and guess what? An elevator. And they're just kind of like talking about Joan not quite feeling like she's fitting in, not like the transition's been bumpy, and Dawn was trying to be encouraging, and they were talking about trying to catch lunch sometime or, trying to bump into each other more. But I'm wondering if at the end of this, because they don't even work on the same floor, Dawn gets off, Joan stays on, and I wonder if they ever see each other again. You just, in work, sometimes you leave and you never come back and you never see the person again. I just found out this week that one of my coworkers is taking a new position elsewhere and leaving the company. And it's, I hate it. I hate it because I hate change. I like the group we have, and I always hate when someone leaves and then you have to find someone new. And I really enjoy the group right now, but it's also in the same position where you don't even get to say goodbye to these people because we're in a world now where everyone's working remotely. But in this, the way this episode ends, you wonder, does Dawn even get a chance to say goodbye to Joan? Does he even care? Because we'll see Dawn's kind of elsewhere as well. I mean, this I'm going to talk about the title of this episode later, but Lost Horizon really, I looked it up. I'm not really that smart, but the, what I did read about it, really kind of, I think, comes into play. Well, obviously, why else would they give it to? But I think I understand why they called it Lost Horizon. We come back into the office, and Dawn is being called into a meeting for. She actually helps Dawn pick out some interior decorating. I think this is when this all happens. At one point, Meredith helps Dawn pick out interior decorating. He's like, "I'll give you cash." She's like, "Nonsense! I enjoy doing it." She's so good to him, and she's actually fit in well, taking over. She comes off a little, she was ditzy. They made her kind of ditzy, but as time has gone on, you can see she actually is quite good at her job. And she's like, "Oh, we're gonna have a box lunch for the beer people. Would roast beef be good?" He's like, "Yeah, sure, okay." Cut over to Joan, and Joan meets up with Kiff, Piff, Fib, Fight, Fifth, whatever the hell the guy's name is. White man in suit, we'll call him, who looks like he could be a good guy, but in truth, probably isn't. But he probably still has a wife and kids at home. And Joan made the mistake of complaining about the first guy to this new guy. And this is actually, I shouldn't say it's the mistake. It's not the mistake of the complaining. It's the mistake of it's not even a mistake. It's the bad luck of who she ended up complaining to. This is one of the main guys, though, and she goes to him about I don't know his name, but the guy in the Avon meeting, the guy who was disrespectful, who didn't read the brief, who wasn't paying attention, and he goes, "You know what? Say no more. I'll take care of it." And it seems like really good, and she seemed really good about it, which should warn you right away that this is not good at all. Peggy's back in the office, back at Sterling Cooper. That dude's there, and he's talking Japanese to somebody. And you know why? He really is making long-distance phone calls. And he did work on something. He made something for Dow Chemical, because they still owe Dow Chemical some work. They made it looked like they made a spray can, but he made it very anti-Vietnam. She's like, "We can't do this." He's like, "Who cares? Dow's not going to ever see it. I'm not even going to work on this. Nobody cares. Who cares?" She's like, "That's not true. You don't know. Maybe someday you're going to work for Don. Maybe someday you work for Ken. You don't know these things. You got to do it right." The lights go off, and he's like, this is kind of ominous. "You know what? I quit." And he leaves. He's like, "Good luck. You're going to fit in. You're going to do great over there once your office is ready." He was nice to her. There was some sincerity there, no hard feelings, and he's out of there. We cut back over to McCann Erickson, and Dawn is like being escorted into the meeting by a guy, almost like an assistant or a butler. And he's like, "Yes, right this way." Goes into the board meeting, and it's just filled with people, filled with all these guys. This was all the creative directors, and Ted was there. Ted's like, "This is only half of them, half of the creative directors, all there to talk about, I want to say, Budweiser and the diet beer." And this guy he's this young guy who I've seen in other things before, and he starts giving this like speech, and it actually reminded me of something Dawn would do, where it's like, there's a man, and this man lives in Wisconsin. And this man drinks beer, and he drinks the beer that his father drank, and drinks the beer that his grandfather drank. And he would never change his beer. But that's not true. We have to figure out a way to get him to change his beer. One thing I forgot to mention, when Joan did go to that guy to complain about the other guy, Pete was there. And Pete seemed to be adjusted well. He was very happy to see Joan. He was like, "I want to get you on this work." He goes, "I really want you on this." And she's like, "That's great." And she actually said, "I want to get Pete. Can Pete work with me? Pete's good at this." And he's like, "Pete's a VP. He's not going to do it." And that's when he was like, I know what to do. So we'll get back there, but I just wanted to mention that Pete was there in that moment. So they're in the meeting, and everyone's eating this box lunch. It's very impersonal. They're drinking Coca-Cola, obviously. They're all there with their glasses and their suits and their notepads, taking notes on their little handout. And Don's sitting there just kind of looking around, and I feel like he felt like a cog. They bring him into this meeting early on, and they're like, there he is, Don Draper. And he's like, I get what I want. We're going to buy they're going to buy a firm in Minneapolis because they want to get some work in Minneapolis or whatever it is. Buying a firm in Wisconsin to get Wisconsin beer. I forget exactly what it was, but it's like this guy would just be like, we want this, we get this. So he buys another toy for the toy box, and Don is one of those toys in the toy box. But when he's in this meeting, I think he feels like, what the hell am I even doing here? Meanwhile, Ted seems to be smiling, seems to pretty much be enjoying himself. Don's like, you know what? He kind of drifts off. He looks out the window and sees this airplane flying by the Empire State Building. And it kind of closes in on him, and it's almost like, I think he's thinking, I wish I was on that airplane. Who's on that airplane? They don't have to be here. I have to be here. Why am I here? What's the point? And he kind of is like, you know what? Screw it. And he leaves. And when he just gets up and walks off, the guy doesn't stop his presentation. Ted sees him and gives a little look like, classic Don. We cut back over to Joan, and that guy now shows up to Joan's office, and she's like, oh, you didn't have to come in. He's like, no, I want to let you know. Can we have a drink? And they have a little drink. And he's basically saying, I want to let you know that I'm going to help you now, and we don't have to worry about that anymore. I'm going to take care of this stuff with you. And he basically said, we're going to work together now. We're going to go take a trip down to Atlanta to go to Avon, and we're going to be together. We're going to have some fun. Basically saying, you're going to give me sex, and you're going to have fun with me, because, you want something, I'm going to give you something. And she says to him, well, she's like, you could see the look on her face, and she's trying to keep it together. She knows what's going on. But she said, that guy, she just wants to do the work. She's like, I can do the work myself. I know how to do it. And he didn't like the way you treated her, the other guy. And she said, he didn't read the brief. He goes, well, what's he supposed to say? His boss is a girl? You can't do that. I'm like, what? That happens all the time, which is hilarious because, or my boss is a woman, because guess what, ladies and gentlemen, my boss is a woman. And you know what that means to me? Nothing, because she's my boss. And I never think twice about it. But this guy, this is the end of the 60s, early the 70s, and a woman is a boss. That's crazy. But you can see this guy's like, I think we have some kind of understanding. They shake hands. She puts a second hand on. And Peggy's like, yeah, that is not happening. I'm not dealing with that. We cut over to the Francis household. We don't see any Henry Francis, but we do see Betty Francis. And this was kind of a great moment. Not like a great, memorable moment. Just a great moment because it was just really nice character moment. So Don's there to pick up Sally, and Sally already got a ride from her friends. And she's like, sorry, she left. She's like, couldn't someone have told me? And he's like, oh, I'm really sorry. You know how she is. These are teenagers. And so he came all the way there for nothing. So he's like, well, when do the boys come back? They're like, oh, they have Cub Scouts and baseball. They don't get back till 6:30. And you can see Betty was kind of like, she had a good head on her shoulders, the way she was talking. And he's like, geez, you learned that from Freud? And she's like, I don't know. She's reading a Freud book. She's taking that. She's trying to get her degree in psychology. And you could see that she's like, I really like doing this. And Don comes over and, gives her a little back rub. It was kind of a nice little moment. And she touches his hand, and he's like, I'm really happy for you. And she's like, thanks. And you can see Don's like, this isn't my place. So he leaves. He's like, I'm really happy for you. And he calls her Birdie. And that was great because only he calls her Birdie. No one else does. And that's his thing. That's their thing. And remember, they kind of had their little affair last year. But it really is kind of over. And he gives it that look. They smile. They seem to be really cordial with each other, which was nice to see. Cut back over to the empty bowels of Sterling Cooper and Partners. And Peggy is making herself some instant coffee. She grabs the handle of the cup, burns it, drops it. Coffee goes everywhere. She looks down at this giant stand and she's like, whatever. And she leaves him behind, leaves and just, who cares? I loved it. She's like, whatever. And what I just noticed, because I'm skimming through, is that there were roller skates in that room where the coffee landed, which will come into play later. We cut over to Don driving home from the Francis house, and he's driving. And then he says, you know what? He takes a turn and gets off the highway, or gets on a different highway. Looks like it was heading towards Pennsylvania, heading west. Go west, young man. Isn't that a saying? We cut over to Joan's place, and she's there with her new boyfriend. I can't remember his name, but Bruce Greenwood. They're together. He's out there visiting, and he's like, I like doing this when your mom and Kevin are out of town or away, but let me take you somewhere. Let me take you to Bermuda or Bahamas or something. Come on, pretty mama, Key Largo, Montego. Baby, why don't we go down to Kokomo? We'll get there fast and then we'll take it slow. That's where I want to go. None of those things happened, but once I started, I couldn't stop. And you could see the stress of work, and having to deal with people. And she's like, you wouldn't understand. He goes, look, I told you not to complain, but it doesn't mean I don't want to hear. So she talks a little bit about it. And he goes, well, listen, there's two ways you could do this. You can get a lawyer and you can go through all this paperwork. You can cost them a lot of money, cost them some embarrassment, or you could get a guy. And she's like, what? What do you mean? He goes, you just get a guy and they take care of it. He's like, what are you talking about? He goes, look, I'm in construction. It happens. She's like, really? He goes, and I think he was joking. He's like, well, it made you think about it, didn't it? Something like that. But then I wonder now, thinking about this now, will there be a lawyer? Will we see Joan again? I don't know. I'm not sure because of the way this episode ended. But it was just a nice moment with Joan and her boyfriend. And I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if she ever gets someone to fight for her. But the lawyer idea, that's stuck in her head. We cut back to Don Draper, and he's got the sleepy eyes. Oh, Don, you got the sleepy eyes. Because he's been driving, listening to the radio, listening to something, all of a sudden he's listening to a commercial, and it's Bert Cooper. Bert Cooper, the guy who died at the moon landing. All of a sudden, Bert's in the car, and they're talking, they're chatting it up. But really, it's Don, and Don's conscious. And he's like, where are you going? He's like, I'm going to Wisconsin. He's like, I try to do a Bert. What's there? Perhaps some waitress who doesn't want to see you? And he's like, well, I'm going anyway. I wish you wouldn't do that. It's funny that he said that. I remembered, the waitress. He's going to find the waitress. Then later on in the episode, I completely forgot about that and wondered, what is Don doing? I can't believe that I forgot that the first time watching it. It's ridiculous. I am ridiculous. Cut back to Sterling Cooper. It's the next day, and Peggy's in her office, kind of just her old office, waiting, and she gets a phone call, or she hears a phone call coming, and it's like, what the hell is that? And she goes out and keeps following it, and it's all the way out in the phone booth that's by the elevator, the payphone. And it's her, I don't know if it's her secretary or not, but it's the woman from McCann who says, your office is ready. Now, would you mind working on a drafting table until your furniture comes in? She's like, yeah, fine, that's fine. But finally her office is ready, so she can come right away. So she goes back into the office, and all of a sudden, it gets a little weird because she starts hearing ominous organ music. And she's like, hello, hello. And she makes her way to like the main common area on the first floor. And there's Roger playing the organ. He scares the hell out of her. He's like, I have a heart condition. He is sticking around right until the very end to give the keys over, I guess. And for the first time in a while, we get some actual Peggy Roger interaction. Concrete, good stuff. He actually tries to give her money to send her to go get some drinks. And he's like, I'd do it for you. She's like, what are you talking about? I'm not going to go do that. But actually, she's like, would you drink vermouth? I think is what she said. She must have had some old alcohol, or she knows where some is. He's like, yeah, I guess so. So they're going to have a drink to toast the end of Sterling Cooper Draper Price. We cut back to Joan's office. We're in McCann now. And Joan gets what looks like, I want to say chocolates. And she thinks it's a nice gift from her boyfriend. But no. She takes the box, big smile on her face, opens the card, really seems genuinely happy. It says, pick a weekend, Ferg. That's his name, not Piff, not Fifth, Ferg. So his name is Ferguson. Okay. And she sees that and she just throws it in the garbage. She's pissed. Cut over, and there's the big main guy, Jim. And he shows up in, I would say Jim Halpert, but isn't that from some TV show? Isn't that from The Office, Jim Halpert? He shows up in Don's office. He's like, I see you in his chair. That means he's not here. Where is he? And she goes, oh, I don't know. He'll be late. Can you let him? He missed this meeting and missed that meeting. I guess you can just tell him to take the rest of the day. Okay, I'll be sure to do that. Like, she's real genuine. Doesn't see the sarcasm in his voice. He's like, let me ask you, is he on a bender? She goes, oh, no, he had to pick bring his daughter back to school, so I'm not worried at all. And he leaves, but you can see this concern on Meredith's face. We do cut over and see that Don kept driving, and he gets up, looks like he just pulls over on the side of the road to take a pee-pee. We just see that. We see him stretch his arms, walk into the woods, and probably go, for a tinkle. Cut back over, and there's Peggy and Roger. And it looked like if that was a brand new bottle, they've already got half of it, more than half of it gone. And they're going through stuff, and you can see that Roger doesn't want to leave. He doesn't want to leave this place. And he's like, come on, have another drink with me. She's like, I really don't want to be here. She's like, I don't want to do this anymore. And he says, here, and gives her she's like, what the hell is this? He goes, oh, it's it's octopus having a bunch of octopus. Is it octopi? Having sex with a woman. It was in Bert's office for years. You can have it. Now it's a gift. Now you have to drink with me. She's like, I don't want this. He goes, oh, it's high art. It's like 150 years old. But she takes it, and they have a drink, and she's like, they're talking, and it was actually nice that he's like, this is the most time we spent together in a while. And he's like, it wasn't all bad, was it? And she's like, no. Because she was kind of, trying to get out of the conversation. But they hung around, and they had a couple laughs, you could see, and they kept on drinking. We cut over, and Dawn is at the front door of a house. Now, at this point, when I watched it the first time, I forgot that Bert said to him, you're going to see some waitress who doesn't want to see you. I forgot that he was going all the way there for Diane. So none of this connected with me until towards the end, which just shows that you've hitched your wagon for this long. And then at 2-3 episodes left in Mad Men, you're realizing, oh my God, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Welcome to Made Man, everybody. That's the point. I watch, I talk. And I hope you stay with me when this is all done and we keep going. But that's a secret. We'll get there. So he shows up. It's late. So he shows up at this household, this woman, and he's like, the Bauer resident? She goes, I'm Mrs. Bauer. He goes, oh, I'm looking for Diane Bauer. And she's like, oh, I don't know. I'll just say I'm Bertha Bauer. Doesn't matter. And she's like, can I help you? Oh, I'm here because I'm part of this sweepstakes that Mrs. Bauer entered for her husband, but it was Diane Bauer. And you win a refrigerator filled with a beer. And I think he used the name of the guy who was in the McCann Erickson. So at this point, this is, again, I'm going to show you my diminished capacity for understanding things. I'm thinking Dawn is pulling some crazy scheme to like proof of concept to either get the idea of calling it light beer, or he's doing something for the work. I didn't realize he just came up with this lie to get into the house or to find out more about, the waitress, because he shows up at the house and the woman's like, oh, my husband's not here. He goes, oh, I can come back or I can wait in the car. And, oh, the neighbors have already seen you on the doorstep. Why don't you come in? Because apparently that matters back then. If the neighbors see you, they'll talk. I mean, we remember all the way back in the old episodes where the divorcee was such a big deal, but now just seeing someone on the doorstep. So she brings into the house, and the first thing he sees is this daughter on the step. And you can see the daughter has dark black hair, not at all like the woman who's there now. The woman who there's now is Mrs. Bauer, but she's like, oh, you're looking for my husband's ex-wife. And, oh, okay. But he comes into the house and sits down, and the daughter's like, my mother win something? He goes, yes, she did. Well, I should have that. I should get the prize. He's like, yeah, that does make sense. Because again, Dawn is just completely lying about this whole thing. We cut back over to Sterling Cooper, and this is where, not Sterling Cooper, I wish, McCann Erickson. And this is where pardon my French, everyone, this is where the shit hits the fan for Joan. Joan goes in, not guns a-blazing, but she goes in fully prepared to have this conversation and says, look, I don't think I should work with Ferg. What a, I mean, if your name is Ferg, and if your name is Ferguson, first of all, you have to be a rich white man. But if you shorten it to Ferg, probably for you boys at the country club or the tennis club, you probably a dick. So she comes in and basically says, I work with my clients. I don't want to work with Ferguson. And he's like, that's non-negotiable. And then she's like, I could just take my clients and leave. And he goes, you think I care? Like, he calls her on everything. And then she starts saying, I could bring a lawyer into this. And, he goes, the women like working here. He goes, I bet if I brought this woman in here and this and that. And he goes, we could write Mein Kampf on the New York Times and no one would care. We could do what we want. Oh, really? You don't think I can get a reporter in here that would like to smear you? She calls him out, threatens lawsuits, threatens embarrassment, threatens all these different things because she doesn't want this guy on the payroll. And he's like, he basically tells her, look, I'll tell you right now, I'll give you 50 cents on the dollar for all your stuff if you get out of here, and I never want to see your face again. And she doesn't seem to want to take the deal, but she really she took her shot and it backfired. And he's like, you need to leave my office now, get out. And she went for it. It didn't work. We cut back. I mean, that was it. Now, I guess at first she's thinking she's just going to keep working and put her head down and, but we go back to the I want to say Bauer residence, and the husband comes home, Mr. Bauer, and it's Mackenzie Aston. I don't know if you know who Mackenzie Aston is. He is the brother of Sean Aston, from the Goonies and Lord of the Rings. His father is John Aston, Gomez Adams from the Addams Family. Mackenzie Aston has been in a bunch of stuff. Now, as a kid, I remember him most from Facts of Life. He was on Facts of Life for many years. And I'm sure he was definitely in was he in the Garbage Pail Kids movie? I feel like he was. And if he was, I apologize. And he's popped up in different things as, just doing character acting, and he's always good. But he, right away, Don gets up and gives the whole thing about the contest, and he snuffs it out right away. But Don even had a story. He's like, I apologize. I'm from a collection agency. You need to tell me where where she's last been. And he's like, I don't know where she's been. Oh, New York. Do you have an address? I don't have one. He goes, I'm really sorry for the ruse, ma'am. I apologize. I'll get you out of your hair. He heads back out to his car. This guy follows him out to the car and goes, don't be bothering my family. I know, what you're doing. He goes, no, I apologize. He goes, no. The nice suit, the Cadillac, you're not from a collection agency. What is this? And he's like, I was worried about her. And he just gave it up. He's like, he came out there to find her. He goes, I know what you're looking for. Last I heard, she's in New York. I don't know where she is. I don't care. I lost my daughter. I lost my wife. I lost everything. He calls her out on. Don went to this guy. The guy lost his daughter. His wife leaves. He's got another daughter. And Don went all the way there. I don't know what the hell he was looking for or what he was trying to find, but he's not going to find her there. That was crazy. That was crazy that he did that. And the guy's like, get out of here. We cut back over to Sterling Cooper, and it's starting to get dark, and they are just loaded. This is like one of the best parts of the whole episode. Roger's he's smoking. You could see he's got his jacket off. He's got his vest on. He's playing the organ. And we look around, and there's Peggy roller skating. Remember those roller skates? She's roller skating through the empty halls of Sterling Cooper. It was awesome. They're just kind of, he was doing the soundtrack of her doing like a skating routine. I loved it. We cut back. Now it's getting dark, but it's not nighttime. It's just kind of the end of the day. And Don's still driving. He's driving, smoking and driving. We do cut to the next day. It is the next morning. And Roger finally shows up to work. And that big guy, Jim, he's like, oh, do people show up around here? Have I bought into a lemon? And Roger's like, calm down. What do you want? Everyone's trying to fit in. It's brand new. And he basically wanted to see him to go to Joan. So while he's talking to Roger, we get the GIF, I want to call it. I call it the GIF because in Strodes, in waltzes, Peggy Olson. Remember at the beginning of the episode, she's walking through the old office with her box like, I don't have my office yet. Now she shows up and her shit don't stink. She's got the octopus having sex with women. She's walking down the hall in shades with her box and a cigarette dangling out of her mouth, and she don't care. And she looks like she's hungover. She doesn't care. She looks happy, and I loved it. That's the GIF that I've seen so many times, the GIF that I've used, and of course, it is the photo of today's episode. We cut back, and now Roger is in Joan's office. They wanted to talk to Roger. Roger wants to talk to Joan. They don't want Joan there anymore. They wanted to take the 50 cents on the dollar deal. And unfortunately, she takes it. You could see she didn't want to. Roger yells at her. It's like she's giving up half her money. So because she was talking earlier, she's going to keep working to get her, because she's owed $500,000. And they're buying her off 50 cents on the dollar. They're giving her $250,000 to get to scram and get out of there. And you could just see the look on her face where she's not going to win. She's not. And Roger looked devastated, telling her, look, this is a no-win situation, basically. Take the deal. And she just kind of nods, grabs her picture of Kevin, grabs her Rolodex and says, I take the deal. I got it. And she walks off. And I feel like, is that the last time we're ever going to see Joan again? We cut over to the end of this episode. It's dawn. It's the daytime. And he sees a hitchhiker. And the hitchhiker's like, oh, I'm going to St. Paul or Duluth. I don't know where that's going. I think he said St. Paul. He's like, yeah, I can go that way. He goes, I don't want you to go out of your way. He's like, not a problem at all. See, Don just kind of drives off. And he doesn't even care. He doesn't want to go back. He fought so much to get back into Sterling Cooper. And now that he's at McCann, It looks like he doesn't even want to be there. He drives off, and that's the end of the episode. And then, like, this is ground control to Major Tom. David Bowie's playing as we fade to credits. The episode title is Lost Horizon. And I just want to give you a quick kind of Wikipedia synopsis. Lost Horizon is a 1933 novel by English writer James Hilton. Just the first line of the overview. Hugh Conway, a veteran member of the British diplomatic service, finds inner peace, love, and a sense of purpose in Shangri-La. Shangri-La was, you've heard of the term Shangri-La. This is where it originated. It's kind of supposed to be the place. It's like the most perfect place where you can find, harmonious life and just perfect utopia. Shangri-La. And this was the first place Shangri-La was used. And I'm thinking that maybe they thought that McCann Erickson is the Shangri-La, this perfect utopian place, but it isn't. Or maybe I'm thinking they're looking for that perfect utopia and they're not finding it. Roger doesn't want to leave Sterling Cooper behind. So bad that he stays there right until the bitter end. Peggy looks like she's finally ready to kick ass, which I love. Roger's like, he's like, it doesn't even matter if your name's on the place. And Peggy's like, maybe someday I'll find out. Joan was in a spot where she was fighting for her independence, fighting for her work, and it backfired. It didn't work. It just, she couldn't do it. And all because, they won, right? I want to say McCann Erickson, they sold the company. This is what happens. They worked with, for a while, it worked out, but now McCann Erickson brings them in, wants them under their umbrella, wants them under their rules. And I think they did this all to try to get Don Draper. And guess what? Don Draper doesn't really even want to be there, to the point where he just left, drove off, and I don't know if he's ever going back. I mean, he probably will go back, but it ain't going to be very long because we only got 2 episodes left. He does not want to be there. He's looking for his Shangri-La. And it isn't in McCann Erickson. It is not. He's been looking for one for years. He's got wives he's gone through. Women. Work. He's good at his work. But it isn't the happiness he's looking for. It might be the happiness that Peggy's looking for. Seems like Ted's doing good too. Pete seems to be thriving. Harry, he's probably going to be doing okay. But honestly, all I care about is Joan, Roger, Don, and Peggy. Roger's going to probably just sit there. I think he said he's on the floor with like all these old people. So it's like he's just there probably to finish out. I can't imagine how much more he's going to do. I think that's it. I think I covered everything, which is crazy because there's a lot going on in this episode. Most importantly, we got the GIF. For forever, I was wondering about that that Peggy walking down the hall, and I'm like, I've even thought, have I seen that before? And then it wasn't until that exact moment when she kind of started strutting down, I was like, there it is. I actually said, there it is. I said that out loud. So yeah, I think we did it. I think we've covered it. And I think we're ready to say goodbye for this week, this episode. But before we do, I wanted to give a little shout out to a couple people. First of all, I want to shout out to Charlene at Fresh Roasters on Twitter. She always retweets. Every time I put on an episode, she always retweets it, which and likes it, which I love. I think it's great. Also, I always get likes from Paul Gallagher. Thank you so much for listening. You're in Northern Ireland? Oh, cool. I didn't even know that. Speaking of Ireland, I got a really cool tweet today. And by today, I'm going to say it was maybe yesterday. No, it's today. It's today. From Anon Butte, which I guess Anon is anonymous. When I first read this, all day I read this thinking it was someone by the name of Anon, but Anon Butte. So an anonymous beauty. I like to flaunt my beauty, but that's cool. That's cool. Whoever Anon is wrote, "Thanks for helping me get through quarantine here in the west of Ireland." So another Irish. I did my best. I was just going to say Irish. Another Irish listener. I'm so bad at doing accents, but I love doing them. And now all of a sudden I'm Scottish. I don't even see I'm not good at this. But said, "Thanks for helping me get through quarantine here in west of Ireland." You're very welcome. That was so cool hearing that. Just the fact that someone else, someone's listening out there is awesome. And lastly, I got Laurie J. House, Jack on Twitter. I tweeted the other day a real sad picture of Don Draper, and I said 3 episodes left. And Jack replied, "I wish it didn't have to end. Will you be covering another show after this?" And I said, "Why, yes, I will be." And then I did a little wink emoji from Mr. Donald Draper. Jack said, "I cannot wait." And yeah, I can't wait too. And I'm like, have I already said what the show's going to be? I feel like I may have mentioned it. I'm not sure if I have. I did like text, because I have some friends who I know that I'm watching Mad Men. And I did say that once I leave Madison Avenue, I will be going to South Dakota. That's all I said. But what I'm going to do is the name of the show is changing. So the show is going to be a more general show. Hopefully that doesn't change anything with you subscribing. Hopefully. But if it does, you'll find me. You'll have to find me. But I'm going to keep this feed the same as it is with a new name, a more general name. But then it's going to be a new series. Like Mad Men is the first series called Made Man. And then the new show is going to have a new title, but it's going to be under this bigger umbrella. It all makes sense in my enlarged head. But I'm getting ahead of myself. That's weeks away. That's streets ahead from now. I still have 2 more episodes of Mad Men to talk about. And as I'm going to say, 3 more episodes of Made Man. That's all I'll say. And hopefully someone out there knows how to watch YouTube Live. But again, that's not for today. Today was to talk about Lost Horizon, and I think we did a pretty good job of doing that. So, as I do every episode, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. Hopefully you're staying home in quarantine and being safe, staying out of people's faces and out of people's way, and hopefully you and your family and everyone you know is safe. It is a weird, crazy time. Some would say it's a time of madness. I just thought of that, so you can use it if you'd like. But the most important thing is you stay safe, stay happy, stay listening. That's really bad. Stay listening is not the most important part, but I still hope that you do. And once again, I want to thank you as I continuously strive to be on my journey. This journey has almost come to an end, and I didn't really say the way that I usually say it. So I'm going to keep talking and kind of reset things. And as we come so close to this journey, I will continue striving, and hopefully you'll continue listening. I'm going to stop now because I'm rambling. Thank you for listening as I strive to become a made man. Fans not experts.